Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Thank you very much. I got a question from somebody. They asked me, do you have an audience when you film the podcast? Sometimes. I mean, not a very large audience, but we usually have a smattering. But of course, if you were at the live show in Flatbush that we did, we had a much larger live audience, and we're going to be doing that again. May 17th, Tuesday night, 8 p.m., Merkaz HaSimcha in Brooklyn, 1898 Bay Avenue. So come early, bring a stick, and beat the crowds. Anyway, that's a little joke there. I don't want you going around hitting people. This is not the Oscars. Anyway, so but that's going to be more of a live audience. So we want to see you there. A lot of people were complaining last time that they didn't have enough notice. So I hope you have more notice this time. And in fact, it was interesting. I don't know if I told this story. I was at the airport and I met a couple who said they wanted to come, but their kid was getting married that night. So that's why first of all, I think you have to re-examine your priorities. But besides that, that's why I made this before Lag BaOmer, before the wedding season starts, so that those of you who are making weddings, gives you an opportunity to inspire and reinvigorate yourself to be able to make that chasana all that more meaningful. Okay. And maybe we'll burn something just to be on the safe side. So just to set that preparation. Okay, so that's what's coming up. What other bits of business? The sign-up is up already for the Tefila series. By the time you're seeing this, we will have had the opening shiur. And you don't want to miss this. I will give you part of the introduction that I plan on saying, and that is that the emphasis of this course is not going to be theory. I'm not going to be talking about tefillah. I want to go through the davening and give you practical insights into the words that you're saying so that your davening becomes more meaningful to you. That's the goal. The emphasis is on practical. And as all of my online shiurim, the reason I don't just record them and put them up as shiurim is because it's interactive. I want people to be able to speak, to be able to share thoughts, and to be able to participate. So that's why this is unique. I like to think that we're having a shiur as opposed to a lecture, as opposed to a recording where people can actually, be interactive with me, so we can all work together to improve our davening. Right? Okay, that's coming up. Now, I remember the last time we did a live show. We're doing it in Brooklyn again. I was going to do one in Lakewood, do one in the Five Towns, but I don't have people to set it up. So I have my Brooklyn people who are there, and we love you. And I know that it's going to take place. So working with the Talmudic principle, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So I know that it worked last time. So when this location becomes so full, then we'll worry about expanding. So I remember hearing somebody who used to daven by Rabbi Reisman. He might still, for all I know, but I had heard the story from him many years ago. They was complaining that the Beis Medrash isn't big enough. We should have an expansion. And Rabbi Reisman said, when the Seder before Shabbos Mincha is too full, that's when I'll expand. But so when this location is overfull. But when you come, there are a lot of Rabbi Orlofsky show crazies, right? And I look at myself as a participant. I don't look at myself, as it's Rabbi Orlofsky. I'm just with you. We're all having fun together. That's the way I like to look at it. And there are people who have listened to all of my shiurim, like all of them, going back years. and they know everything about me because I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm. People meet my children and go, "Are you the one who? Are you the?" So I sometimes try to couch it a little bit so people don't know who I'm talking about, But I remember my son, when I had only one son, before I had the two little boys at the end. But I had one son. I had 8 girls and 1 boy. And he says, "Abba, it's not fair. Whenever you say my son, everyone knows you're talking about me." I said, "Okay, from now on, I won't say my son. I'll say one of my kids." So I was talking. I said, so one of my kids was going to Cheder. But, listen, a lot of our information is out there. In fact, on my Daf Yomi, I was saying something that I know you who watch the podcast will find this amazing, but it was a little edgy, He says, you can get into trouble. I said, anyone who wants to take me down, there's enough stuff out there already to take me down. If you haven't gotten me, don't worry about it. It's one of my brothers used to say, if you're going to kill me, you better shoot me with the first bullet because you ain't getting a second shot. So I've been killed at least 3 times and I'm still here. So, take your best shot. Anyway, but there are people who watch everything. They know everything. They're a part of my life. So we had in the audience a couple of Rabbi Orlofsky show fans, And I did a particular podcast, and he said to me, I heard everything you said before. Everything you said before. Now, I don't know if that's true. And I started to show him I never said this, I never said that. He started to agree with me. But there are certain general themes that are going to repeat itself. Rabbi Dr. Twersky once said, I forgot how many books at the time, 35 books, 40 books, but I really only wrote one book 40 times. Because it all has the same basic theme. Or as I once said to Rabbi Brown after a shiur by Moshe Shapiro, I said, I feel like he said all these things already. And he said, an artist has only so many colors to work with, but he can produce endless paintings. So a lot of the ideas I tend to repeat because they're important. So people know a lot of what's going on, and they feel like I repeat certain things. So I want to tell you a story that I know you've never heard. I know it's never heard because it just happened to me last week. So, brand new story. Those of you who say, oh, he repeats stuff, brand new story. You may have noticed, if you're in any of my other shiurim, that I am a Coke Zero aficionado. I am not endorsing it. I drink it for the caffeine. I drink the Coke Zero because I don't want the sugar, but I need the caffeine. Now, I suppose they probably make an Israeli version of no-dose, which I used to use during high school when I would save my reports that were given to me in November. And one Sunday night in June, I finally decided to start writing it the day before it was due. So I would take no-dose to stay up and type it. The only thing is that, if you take enough caffeine, it wakes up your mind, but your body's still asleep. So I'm typing like this. I'm like, okay, we got to speed this up somehow. Well, my body was sleeping. So it wakes you up. I guess I could just take a straight caffeine pill, but okay. I drink Coke Zero. It helps to wake me up, So I go up at night into the Beis Medrash to prepare. I give a Daf Yomi shiur online, as you know. You can sign up for it at the website, RabbiOrlofsky.com, along with the Mesil Sharm shiurim and the Tefila series, So I'm upstairs preparing, and I have my Coke Zero. So sometimes it's noisy in the Beis Medrash. And I know there's nothing wrong with being noisy in the Beis Medrash. Noise in the Beis Medrash doesn't bother me. The concerts bother me. There are certain people who, it's not that they're learning, they're singing. But I mean, they're literally singing. They're sitting in front of the Gemara going, ya na na na, ya na na na, ya na 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 na. And I find that extremely disturbing. For me, I need concentration. So people who are learning, okay, it's the sound of learning. You can consider that the call of the Beis Medrash. But the people who want to put on a concert, I have no. It's difficult for me to learn. So I go in the back room. So I go in the back room and I put my Coke Zero on a chair. And there's a stack of chairs next to me, these plastic chairs. And I put my little cup of Coke Zero. So I'm learning, and at one point I go to refill my cup. And I didn't hold the cup because I thought that it was heavy enough that it would be able to hold it. But I was wrong. It spilled over. And the Coke Zero spilled onto the chair. Well, I put the bottle down, and I started cleaning it up. But these plastic chairs that they have in Israel, I don't know about in America, these plastic keter chairs, they have little holes in them. So I said, oh my gosh, it must have gone down the stack of chairs. And I was right, by the way. Every single chair had Coke Zero on it. So I lift up the first chair without realizing that people had stacked up Sefirim on the shelf sticking out. So as I lifted up the chair, the Sefirim fell off, knocked over the bottle of Coke Zero, which exploded all over the floor. So I looked at the situation. First thing I did was pick up the bottle of Coke Zero. It took me a few seconds to do that. I should have done that faster, I suppose. And I'm in the back room of the base magician. And this is a big mess. So I immediately thought of the first encounter of the Marvelous Meals machine where the kids spill the milk on the kitchen floor. And one of them says, let's go back to bed. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. Maybe I should leave and just pretend I don't know anything about it. Then I realized everyone knows I bring a big bottle of Coke Zero up into the base bedroom. So I got no choice. I go in the back. I find the sponger. I start spongering it up, wringing out Coke Zero into the bucket, Baruch Hashem, I'm not a yeshiva guy, because a yeshiva guy thinks, maybe I can still drink this. A guy told me he was in his dira and like this glass of jelly fell and it shattered, a jar of jelly. And when something shatters like that, there's a million little pieces and they're wondering how much of the jelly can I salvage that probably won't have little glass fragments in it. So I'm wringing it out, I'm cleaning it up, and I clean up the whole place. And then I get to the stack of chairs, and each chair has a little puddle of Coke Zero, until I get the whole place clean. Yeah. Now, this reminded me of an earlier story, and I'm pretty sure I never told this story either. Yeah. When I was Long Island Regional Director, one of my obligations was to raise my budget. I'm not a fundraiser. I never have been. It's because of a poor chinuch that my parents gave me. My parents taught me never to ask anybody for anything. And that's how I am to this day. Very hard for me. If I'm in a community where I don't have a car and I don't know anybody and I'm staying a mile away from a shul, I will walk that mile rather than ask somebody for a ride. It's very hard for me. That's how my parents brought me up. I remember when I was in elementary school, a kid invited me over his house for Shabbos, and I asked my parents, and they said, they don't need you. Nobody wants you. Just stay here. There's a reason I'm the way I am. But anyway, so I just can't. And that's why I've had people, when I was running NCSY, they would say to me, I really like what you're doing. Stop by and I'll give you a check. I couldn't do it. If they take a check and they put it in my hand, I'll take it. But to go and ask people for money is just the hardest thing in the world. Rabbi Gedolim Zatzal, who I spoke about during the first year of the podcast, who was Nifter, he said to me, he said, you're going to have to answer in Shemayim for this. Because you have the opportunity to give people nitzchias by giving tzedakah to be able to support Torah, and you're denying them this opportunity. And I said, you're right. I'm not defending it. I have a problem. I have a problem when it comes to asking people for things. It's very hard for me. Yeah. So I was supposed to raise money, and every year I would submit a budget, and I would show how I was going to raise the money, and I never did. But I produced so much results they couldn't get rid of me. So one of the fundraisers I made was this thing called Locksbox. I would go to Elmhurst Dairy, which was owned by From People. They would donate me quarts of milk. In America, those cartons, quarts of milk. They don't have bags there. Yeah, quarts of milk, pint of orange juice, and a bar of cream cheese. Somebody else would donate lox. And then I would actually go and buy the bagels. And everyone would donate the bagels. 6 bagels. And I found the perfect box that would fit everything perfectly. We would arrange it. And then we would put like some little literature on the top and fold it up, made a perfect box. And we'd put a sticker on the top, from Long Island NCSY, Lox Box. And people would send this on Mother's Day as gifts. That's what we did. It was a fundraiser. It no way produced enough money to justify this. If I wasn't so, psychologically injured, I could have just gone over to some guy and asked him for a check, and this wouldn't be necessary. But I'm a damaged individual, yeah. So Friday we would collect all the stuff, and I got special permission from the shul of Shalom, where they gave me office space. I just mention, give a shout out. When I came to Long Island NCSY, there was nothing. There was one member in the region because she was on national board. And there was nobody, there was no chapters, there was no office, there was no nothing. I started from scratch. I had a $250 a month budget for everything. I couldn't afford office rental. So I remember Erwin Duffler and Rabbi Wahlberg from Or Shalom. They said, we'll give you the old shul office. And they both came down with some other balabatim. They cleaned the whole place out and gave me this office. That's why I ran NCSY from Long Island for 9 years from that location. And they gave me special permission to store this, the materials for the lox box in the Fleischiger kitchen. Because really you're not supposed to put milk in there, but they said, okay, we trust you. You can keep the stuff in the Fleischiger kitchen. Yeah? Okay. So then we'd bring together a bunch of NCSYers about 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And we would all get together, assembly line, and make the lox boxes. And then we had people who would drive them around. Yeah. And that was a fundraiser. Anyway, one year, this wonderful young man wanted to come and help us schlep in the things. And I have all the cartons of milk on a dolly. There must have been 4 cartons stacked up. And he says, wait, I'll take that for you into the Fleischiger kitchen. And I said, be very careful. He says, yeah, don't worry about it. He wheels it in and let's go. Thinking, like I did with the little cup of Coke Zero, that it would stay. So the dolly moved to its upright position and kept going. And it hit the ground and the cartons exploded all over the Fleischiger kitchen. I'm out of there over 30 years. So if there's anybody in the shul and you're still upset at me, don't worry about it. You never knew. Because there I am, Erev Shabbos, a few hours before Shabbos, and there's milk all over the Fleischiger kitchen. Who spilled the milk in the Fleischiger kitchen? Not me. And I looked at my good friend and assistant director, Joe Werfel. Oh, Shalom. And we look at each other and we're like, we got to clean this up. What are we going to do? I hope I get home in time for Shabbos, It's, Joe was often put into a position of having to clean up these kind of messes, I remember when we made our second regional convention. It was in Shari Tefila in Lawrence. Joe was about 6'5", a very tall fellow. Anyway, somebody was supposed to pick up the food for the entire convention and bring it from Queens to Lawrence. We were in Shari Tefila of Lawrence. And he forgot it. And he shows up. And I remember Joe, he's about 6'5", he sits down on the curb. His head in his hands, and he's like, that's it, we're finished, we have no food, we have to take a convention. I said, Joe, go now. He says, Memorial Day weekend on the Van Wyck. I'll never make it back in the Shabbos. I said, Joe, you got to go. So he goes off. In the meantime, I'm trying to handle, crisis over here. We had two different buildings. I'm down here. I'm down here. Anyway, I come back. And the youth director, who was a very strong fellow because I was probably about twice the size I am now. I walk in, and the kids are all showing up for their housing assignments. And he takes me by the lapels and lifts me in the air and says, where's the housing list? And I said, Joe has it. Well, eventually we got the food and everybody found a place to sleep and everything worked out. But there I am with the milk all over the floor, and there I am with the Coke Zero over the floor. And I thought, okay, there's a message here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending me a message. What is he trying to tell me? And I think he's trying to tell me the following. It's nice when everything goes well. It's great. It's great. But that's not how life works. Life is messy. When I say messy, I don't just mean Coke Zero and milk all over the floor. I mean, life is messy. Relationships are messy. When you have parents, or you have children, or you have neighbors, or you have siblings, it gets messy. If everybody was reasonable, which means agree with me, then life would be fine. But sometimes it gets messy. Sometimes you forget to take care of something, and now you have a problem. And you have to go and deal with that problem. And sometimes things just fall apart. It's the nature of life. Now, here's what I don't do. What I don't do is sit down right away and beat myself up. Because that doesn't solve anything. All it does is make me feel bad, but it doesn't solve the problem. If there's a problem to solve, I have to sit down and solve the problem. If there's no problem to solve, then I say, okay, I made a mistake. That's a mistake that you won't make again. Yeah? Try to learn from this mistake. And that's why I know I have quite an array of young people who like to listen to my podcast. Every now and then they write me and ask me for a shout out. And I just remember a young lady who I forgot her first name, so I don't want to just say her last name because I don't think that's appropriate. She asked me for a shout out. So I'm thinking of you, if you know who you are. I'll mention, believe that, I'll mention your name next week. But, I have elementary school and junior high and high school and seminary and yeshiva, people who watch as younger people. So you don't have the same, perspective. When you get to be my age, yeah, and you tell time by decades, and you understand I'm a better person now than I was in my 50s or my 40s or my 30s or my 20s. And I don't have to be perfect tomorrow. I make mistakes. I can spend my time regretting those mistakes. I could spend the time beating myself up. But that doesn't help. Doesn't make the world a better place. Doesn't make me a better person. I like to think of it in these terms. In high school, I was taking biology. And towards the end of the year, I probably had, based on assignments and tests, an average somewhere in the 30s. Maybe the 40s, but more likely the 30s. Well, that's not a passing grade. So my teacher said to me, take the Regents. If you're not from the New York area, they have these standardized tests called the Regents. And whatever mark you get on the biology Regents, that will be your mark for the year. Well, I got myself all of the Regents preparation books, and I crammed. I studied like crazy. To this day, I still know about Malpighian tubules. Piece of information that has never helped me, as most of the things I learned in high school has never helped me. When I was in geometry, they teach you proofs. So I know 3 ways to prove that the base angles of an isosceles triangle are congruent. A isosceles triangle means that the 2 sides are equal, the base is not. And so the base angles are equal. I know 3 ways to prove it. I'm 63 years old. Never once has anyone ever asked me, are the base angles of an isosceles triangle congruent? Yes. But can you prove it? Yes, I can. 3 ways. The one that I like to use is the identity postulate, which says line AD is equal to line AD, because that has got to be the dumbest thing ever. I forgot to write it once, and I lost points, because I have to say something is equal to itself, and you have to write it down, because these geometry people can't figure it out. Understand? That's what the acorn said when he grew up, geometry. But anyway, I work for all ages. But, okay. So I studied and I crammed, and I got a 90 on the biology regions. That was my mark for the year. So as I was sitting there taking in the back, they have a whole bunch of regions from past years. You take the test. I was getting terrible marks. But I wasn't upset because this isn't the final test. This is just a practice. I got to get it good. So by the time I reached the actual regions, I was up to a 90. That was pretty impressive. Yeah. Life is the regions. And the final test comes at the end when you get up to Shemayim. And until then, you're practicing to try to get better. Sheva Yipol Tzadik. A Tzadik fails. That's just reality. You're going to spill the Coke Zero, and then you're going to have to clean it up. You're going to spill the milk, and you're going to have to clean it up. You're going to make a mess of your life. Sometimes more serious, sometimes less serious. And you're going to clean it up. And by the end of your life, you're going to find that you're a lot better person than you were when you started. And that doesn't mean that things stop. That doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. You'll make mistakes. You'll do things that are petty and are venal and are selfish and are mean. Everybody does. Not me, but I'm talking about you. I would never do anything like that. I have to tell you, that's part of the appeal of the Rabbi Orlofsky show. Okay, just for a moment, yeah. I used to give a shiur on Har Nof every other Motzi Shabbos for many, many years, and more than once somebody said to me, "You know why I love coming to your shiur? Because you're so ordinary, and I feel like if you can do it, anyone can." And that's exactly, we're all in this together. You know, you have. We have a question about this in our question and answer series. So I'll go into this a little bit more. But yeah, few and far between are the people who are perfect. And life is messy. And so we're in Sefira Sa'imah, where every single day counts. And we have to try to put our lives into order. And we have to try, this is a microcosm of a year. All right? The Gemara says, you read the Klolos and Kisavo before Rosh Hashanah, and you read the Klolos and Bechukosai before Shavuos, Tichlo Shana B'Kilosecha, which means that from Pesach to Shavuos is a year. It's a microcosm. And it's more than that. It's a time where we come out of Mitzrayim as a cotton, and when we stand at Har Sinai, we're an adult. We have to grow up. We have to accomplish a lot in a small period of time. But that's just a small life. Just an example. Every single day you're supposed to be going up. I may have mentioned this at one point. Oave Yesh. Right? A person who lives their life properly. Oave Yesh. What's Yesh? Yesh means you have. You have something. You have an existence. You have a life. Oave Yesh. Says the Zohar Kodesh, Yesh is Rashi Tevos Yovel and Shemitah. So Moshe will explain once. He didn't say this. This is an Alshich I'll throw in. The Alshich says, it says in Tehillim a person lives 70 years. And we see in the Torah, we don't start counting you until the age of 20, which means a lifetime is 50 years. It's a yovel. So if you count your years with Shemitas and yovelos, at the end you reach a point where you're out of this world. And that's Sefira Omer. You count 7 days, 7 times, and the 50th day, Shavuos, you're out of this world. That's how you have to live your life. We count every day because every day counts. Put that on a bumper sticker. But anyway, so these are important ideas. Don't lose hope. Don't beat yourself up. When it spills, just have to clean it up and start again. Or at the end of Fiddle on the Roof, Rabbi, wouldn't this be a good time for the Messiah to come? Yes, but until he does, we'll just have to wait for him someplace else. And it would be nice. It would be nice if everything went the way that we want, but it doesn't. All you can do is pick yourself up, put one foot in front of the other, and keep going. Once there was a little old ant, tried to move a rubber tree plant. Everyone knows an ant can't move a rubber tree plant, but he's got high hopes. He's got high... Okay, you get the idea. I haven't sung in a while, so I thought that was important. Okay, that's our Sefira message for this podcast. And now we go to the question and answer portion of our program. I'll start with this question because I just alluded to it. Anonymous asks, with all the discussion about R Chaim Kanievsky's hasmadah, finishing Shas every year, etc., isn't it discouraging? I'm just a normal guy and probably will not finish Shas even once in my lifetime. How can we normal people hear such Gedolim stories and not be discouraged? First of all, you can finish Shas. You just have to join the R Orlofsky Daf Yomi program. That's my advice. You don't have to. There are people online who give you that Daf Yomi Shir for free. And some of them will even send you a free Gemara. And you'll have a big party, and it comes with all kinds of, treats. I don't give you any treats. I'm the treat. But you can do it. 1 page at a time. So, you can finish Shas. But forget about that. Doesn't make a difference. Let's say you haven't got the Yechilis. Such a great word. I feel so yeshivish. You haven't got the Yechilis to get through Shas. Yeah? Trust me, I'm doing Yivamis right now. So, how do you hear about R Chaim Kanievsky and not feel discouraged? The answer is because... I'm going to tell you a story. I may have told this story. My R Orlofsky show, Hasidim will tell you whether I've ever told this story. It's a famous story with the Netziv. I heard this when I was in Chavetz Chaim, my first year from Rabbi Moshe Chait. They say the Netziv wasn't particularly gifted. And he overheard his parents saying, we can't really afford to keep paying a malamed for a kid who's never really going to make it in learning. And he heard this and he pushed himself very hard to be able to succeed, and he became the Netziv. And he said once, what would have happened if I didn't push myself so hard? So I would have gotten up into Shemayim and they would say, so what'd you do with your life? And he says, well, I was a shoemaker and I ran my business with honesty and I raised my children to be from Jews and I lived a good life. And they would look at me and say, where's all the svarim you were supposed to have written? You should have been the Netziv. And I have to tell you, for years, I would see Rabbi Chait going, you should have been the Netziv. And at some point in my life, I realized, no, I should not be the Netziv. I will never be the Netziv. Now, I'm not as sharp, I'm not as charif as the brisker of Avram Yeshua, where he told this story and he says there are certain people going to get up to Shemayim and Hashem's going to say, look at all the svarim you wrote. Where are the shoes? Why didn't you make shoes? No, Okay, so you got to know. And I have to tell you how many people I've met who were traumatized from that story. And I said to them, no, you're not the Netziv. I don't have to be the Netziv. I don't have to be R Chaim Kanievsky. But I have to look at him and say, on my level, I have to try to achieve as much as I can, like he worked to achieve what he could. Now, if my dad was the stipler instead of a florist, if I grew up in Bnei Brak instead of North Merrick, Long Island, then maybe I might have turned out a little better. If I had, at least a normal head instead of a collection of learning disabilities, maybe I would have done better. But even then, there's only so much that anyone could have expected from me. Yeah? That's why one of my rebbeim once told one of the people I was working for, I'm surprised he ever amounted to anything. I don't have to be R Chaim Kanievsky, but I look at R Chaim Kanievsky and I say, Oave Yesh. That's a person who has a meaningful life. I could have a meaningful life. And that's what I have to shoot for. Anonymous asks, why can't women be halachic witnesses? So, the short answer is, God said so. Okay? Everything else is speculation. Or as we say in Hebrew, speculatia. It's getting easier for me to speak Hebrew. Speculatia. Yeah? We don't know. Hashem said so. That's the answer. This much I can tell you, it has nothing to do with ne'emonis. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're believed. This is Rabbi Chanan Vassman's famous chakira. There's two reasons why people can't be Eidim. Either because they're not trustworthy, or because they don't have a ticket to Beis Din. That's the way all my rebbeim always used to explain to Rabbi Chanan. They don't have a ticket to get into Beis Din. Moshe and Aaron are very trustworthy, but they cannot come and give edus together because they're relatives and they don't have a ticket to get into Beis Din. So they can't give edus. And so too a woman can't give edus. That's the correct answer. But if you want to speculate, and I like to speculate, I like to try to make things meaningful for me, I say the following. All of Torah is about a conflict of values. And that's why very often the Gemara will create a scenario where two values come into conflict for you to try to decide which one is more important in that situation. What's more important, to see or to hear? I could make a good argument for either one. I think it was Abbott and Costello, I'm not sure. But what he says to him, he goes, how would you like to die? Old age. But there was another scene where he goes, I want to be hanged on that tree. It was like the little tiny tree. He goes, that'll take years. He goes, I'll wait. Would you rather be deaf or blind? So you say, well, what difference does it make? Well, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach had to have a procedure. There were two different procedures. One had the risk of him going deaf, and one had the risk of him going blind. Now you got to choose. So the Gemara creates conflict. So testifying is a very important value. In fact, if you know edus and you don't give it, there's a special korban you have to bring. That's how serious it is if you didn't testify. But the king does not testify, even if he's the only witness. Why? Because it's not lefi kvodo. It's not considered covered for the king to go into court and testify. Yeah. So that being the case, you see that giving testimony is a value, but it's not the most important value. Some values are more important. I've spoken to girls who went to co-ed schools, and sometimes they had to give a presentation in front of the class. And I said, junior high, high school, whatever it was. I said, did you sense the boys looking at you as you were speaking? They said, yes. I said, how did that make you feel? Not good. So to make women stand up in a public forum, when we say, Kol kvuda bas melech panima, That's a more important value, not to devalue somebody by dragging them into a courtroom. Now, that's my own theory. I haven't seen it in any place, but to me, it makes sense. So if you like it, good. And if not, make up something else. I don't really care. Okay, we have time for one more. Anonymous asks, could you please say the story about how your brother burnt down the kitchen? This is a perfect example of what I said at the beginning, how people are intimately involved in my life. I don't know when I told this story or what form it was, but I'm more than happy to share it with you. Yeah. I got from at 12. And my parents sacrificed to send me to a Jewish day school. They did not have the money. They had gone bankrupt. It was a very hard sacrifice for them. And it was pretty good because I totally ignored everything that was going on until 8th grade. And so I didn't have a problem. We never had any conflict. In fact, ironically, in 7th grade, I wanted to leave yeshiva and go to public school, and my father convinced me to stay in yeshiva. Anyway, then I became frum, and I was what is known as an FBT. So most people know a BT is about tshuva, and FFB is from birth. Yeah, an FBT is a flaming Baal tshuva. You carry around the spear looking for someone to stick it in. You know, I was real intense. Anyway, my parents kept a kosher home because my grandfather, who was kosher, said he would not eat in my parents' house unless it was kosher. But they kept what they knew. Like my father would say to me, if it says 100% vegetable shortening, then it's fine. And I didn't know then that you could say 100% vegetable shortening and include 4% of non-vegetable shortening. Now, if you know your halacha, that means it's not batel b'shishim. So I slowly had to make changes in the house, and we fought about everything. To put in a Shabbos urn was a big fight because it says, why? What's the problem? We had an instant hot water, you know. Every time you turn on a faucet somewhere, there's a pump that's going on. There's something that's happening. I don't understand. There's no what the big deal is. I had to fight about that. Had to fight about the light and the fan and the refrigerator. I had to tape up you're going to burn out the motor, you know, a black, you're going to burn down the house. I mean, we had to fight about everything. And listen, there were certain problems that were sort of inherent that I could not solve. So I had a girl in my class who lost her father. I live, if you know Long Island, I live in North Merrick. She lived in Levittown. That's pretty far. I had a bicycle, and I could ride pretty far on my bicycle. This was 4 or 5 miles. And I headed out one night and went to pay a shiva call. Unbeknownst to me, my brother, who stayed home, does not know how to cook. I knew how to cook. All the brothers used to go into the store with my father. I did too. And at some point he said to me, do me a favor, stay home and help your mother instead. I evidently was not cut out for business. To this day, I find business absolutely fascinating, but I can't figure out what it means, how to do it. I don't have a head for business. But I know how to cook, I know how to clean, I know how to shop. My bicycle, I had a big basket on the front, basket on the side. I would do the shopping. Eventually, I reached the level of my brother Gedolim. Yeah, not quite, you know, because I figured out how to pull a shopping cart filled with groceries behind me on the bicycle. I say not my brother Gedalim's level. He could do 2 shopping carts and just steer with his feet. I wasn't on that madrega. It's cotton a diris. But I could bring back, I know how to do all those kind of things. My brother didn't. So he wanted to make blintzes. So what do you need? You need oil. So he takes a frying pan, fills it up with oil, and he turns it on high, and he goes to watch the basketball game. And at some point, he sees that the house is filling with smoke. And he goes into the kitchen, and he sees this bubbling oil all over the place. And he did what most people would when they see a fire. He threw water on it. That doesn't go well with boiling oil. And the boiling oil flew all over the place. And the whole kitchen went up in flames. And eventually I come home on my bicycle. And I come into the house and the whole kitchen is burnt down. He's on a ladder trying to wipe the soot off of the ceiling. And my mother looks at me and she thought I was behind this. Now, I'm smart, but I'm just not that good. I mean, I don't have those kind of plans, you know? And she looks at me. She was trying to figure out how I was responsible for this. And she said, "Why weren't you here?" And I said, "I went to pay a shiva call to a girl in my class. She lost her father, you know. She was in 10th grade, 9th grade, you know. I thought it was appropriate, you know." She goes, "Well, now the whole kitchen burnt down." So I said, "You know, if we're going to redo the kitchen already, I have some suggestions." Now, if you know anything about kashrus, that's what we call Liban Gomor. You've heard of self-cleaning ovens? This was called the self-cleaning kitchen. And we replaced it, and they put in 2 dishwashers, they put in 2 sinks, and we solved all of the problems. And to this day, it was Mamash Chasdei Hashem, and I cannot take credit for it, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always looking out for us. I assume that was the message of the story. All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget the live show in Flatbush on May 17th. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave a comment. You can send an email. You could sign up for the new Tefila series. You can sign up for Daf Yomi. You can sign up for one of the 2 Mesilas Yesharim shiurim we do online. You can sponsor an episode. You can have it your way. That's it for this week. I'm David Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.